The fleet was ready. The time had come. Elena Hawke's fingers gripped the controls of Red Hawk, her gaze fixed on the shimmering darkness ahead. The Zeta Quadrant, an isolated, dangerous stretch of space, was now the focal point of humanity's last, desperate gamble. The Etherians had begun assembling a weapon of unimaginable destruction, one capable of annihilating fleets in a single blow. The mission was simple: destroy it, or perish trying. "We're moving out in 3 minutes, Captain," Isaac Lee's voice came through the comms. The fleet was spread out behind them, a collection of Earth's finest warships, including the Endurance, prepared for the most dangerous assault they had ever attempted. Elena glanced over at her squadron, her heart heavy with the weight of leadership. She could see the same determination on each of their faces. There would be no turning back from this. "Elena," Ray's voice broke the silence, his voice warmed despite the tension. "We've been through hell together. Whatever happens, I'm with you." "Same here," Lieutenant Taylor, a fighter pilot in the squadron, added. "We're all in this, no matter what." Elena's lips curled into a small smile, though her chest was tight with the gravity of their situation. "I know. Let's show the Etherians that humanity doesn't just survive. We fight." The fleet plunged into the heart of the Zeta Quadrant, surrounded by the eerie beauty of distant asteroids and swirling cosmic dust. It was a perfect hiding place for the Etherians' new weapon, a place where no one would stumble upon it by accident. Yet, despite the vastness of space, there was no mistaking the danger that loomed ahead. The mission was already underway as they cut through the stars, but the deeper they moved into the quadrant, the more tense the silence became. The Endurance and the larger warships formed the rear, while Elena's squadron of Falcon-class fighters led the charge, scouting ahead. Approaching the target location, Isaac's voice was grave. "We're in the right quadrant, but the Etherians have fortified the area. The weapon is close, but so are their defenses." "Keep your eyes peeled," Elena ordered, as her fighter dipped into the asteroid field, its sleek shape cloaked in the dark fabric of space. They were undetected, for now. "Hostile signatures detected." Ray's voice crackled in her ear. "They know we're here." Suddenly, the quiet hum of space was broken by the shrill sound of warning alarms. From the shadows of the asteroids emerged dozens of Etherian ships, massive war cruisers, darting fast and sharp, ready to obliterate anything in their path. "Stay tight, squadron," Elena shouted. "We push forward, there's no time to waste." The battle erupted in a flash of chaos. Elena swerved Red Hawk in a tight roll, narrowly evading a direct hit from an Etherian cruiser. Her heart raced, but there was no hesitation. They couldn't stop. Not now. Falcon-class fighters zipped past her in a blur of speed, firing quantum disruptor missiles at enemy ships. The Etherian ships retaliated with blistering energy blasts, their beams leaving trails of light through the void. "Captain, we've got incoming fire from the larger ships." Ray's voice was urgent. "We need to break through now." Through the smoke of explosions and the staccato rhythm of weapons fire, Elena saw the faint silhouette of the Etherian weapon, hidden behind a massive asteroid at the heart of the facility. It was a structure unlike anything she had ever seen, pulsating with ominous energy. This was it, the weapon that could end them all. "Elena, the weapon's core is exposed," Isaac's voice cut through the chaos. "We've got a small window to strike, but their defenses are overwhelming. You have to lead the charge." Elena's jaw tightened. She knew what they were asking. A direct assault meant breaking through the heart of the Etherian defenses, putting everything on the line. It was a one-way trip. "Follow my lead," she commanded, her voice unwavering. The Falcon-class fighters peeled off, each of them breaking formation and diving toward the heart of the facility. Elena's instincts kicked into high gear as she led the charge, weaving through enemy fire with the precision only years of training could afford. Every movement was calculated, every shift in trajectory a desperate attempt to avoid being torn apart by the Etherian ships. The weapon loomed larger with every passing second, its core glowing brighter as they neared. Elena could feel the heat from the massive energy reactor even through the cold void of space. This was humanity's chance to end the war, for good. The comms crackled. "We're almost there," Ray shouted. "Shields are starting to fail. Push through," Elena yelled. "We make it, or we don't. No second chances." With a sudden jolt, Elena's ship was rocked by a hit. Her shields flickered, nearly failing, but she fought to maintain control. The Etherian fire was relentless, but they had to keep moving. "We're in range," Isaac's voice came through. "Ready to strike." Elena locked onto the core of the weapon with her targeting system, her hands moving as if they were no longer her own. She could feel the energy building within her ship, the launch of the quantum disruptor missile imminent. She pressed the trigger. For a moment, everything was still. The Etherian forces around them continued to fight, unaware of the impending doom about to strike their greatest weapon. Then, with a brilliant flash of light, the missile tore through the air and impacted the heart of the weapon's core. A massive explosion consumed the facility, the shockwave shaking the very fabric of space around them. The weapon was gone. But the victory came at a cost. Elena saw the debris from the facility's destruction scatter across the asteroid field. Several of her squadron had been caught in the blast, their ships reduced to wreckage. Ray's voice came through the comms, gasping, shaken. "We did it, Elena, but at what cost?" Elena looked at the shattered remains of the Etherian weapon. The weapon that had threatened their future. The Etherians had underestimated them, thinking they could crush humanity with their superiority. But they had underestimated their will to survive. "Elena," Isaac's voice was soft, filled with pride and sorrow. "We've won. The war is over." Humanity had redefined the universe in that single, fateful moment. But Elena knew that the true victory had been much more than the destruction of a weapon. It had been the triumph of their spirit. They had shown the galaxy that humanity would never bow, never break. They would fight until the end, and beyond. As Earth's fleet turned back toward home, Elena gazed at the stars, knowing they had earned their place in the universe. The battle had been long and the cost great, but the future was theirs to shape. Humanity had redefined the universe, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Zenith and its fleet of ships cruised silently through the vast, dark void of space. The hum of the engines was the only sound that filled the cabins, the only sign of life in an expanse where everything seemed so impossibly distant. Eliana stared at the view outside her window, a black sea filled with stars. There was no moon, no Earth to guide them now, only the boundless unknown stretching ahead. She had always dreamed of the stars, but not like this. Not under these circumstances. The galaxy was a place of wonders, yes, but it was also a place of dangers. Humanity had never truly ventured beyond its own solar system and the numbers required to make a colony viable. Now, they had no choice but to take the plunge. They were on their own. Her mind kept racing back to Earth. The last images of it, burning beneath the onslaught of the solar flares, haunted her every moment. The people they had left behind, too many to save. The sacrifice was more than she could bear sometimes. But there was no time to dwell. They had to find a new home. It was all they could do. "We're approaching the first jump point," Captain Kor's voice crackled through the ship's intercom, breaking Eliana's thoughts. "Brace for warp speed." She sat up straighter, her fingers gripping the armrests of her chair. It was time. Their first leap into the unknown. The ship's massive engines began to hum louder as they neared the threshold for faster-than-light travel. Outside the window, the stars began to blur and stretch, forming long, ghostly streaks of light. They were about to break through the fabric of space-time itself, making the unimaginable leap from one star system to another. Eliana exhaled sharply. Despite the technology at their disposal, despite everything they had learned over centuries of exploration, this jump was still dangerous. The forces involved in traveling faster than light were unpredictable. There was no telling where they might end up. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. Captain Kor's voice gave the final count. And then, with a sudden lurch, the Zenith shot forward, the stars outside distorting into streaks of light as the ship broke through the fabric of space. Time itself seemed to warp and twist around them as they sped through the interstellar abyss. For a brief moment, Aliana felt as though they were traveling through some alien dimension, a place that existed between worlds, where nothing made sense and everything was suspended in uncertainty. But before she could even think about it, the ship's systems let out a series of warning beeps, and the vessel lurched again, this time far more violently than before. "What the hell?" Jonas' voice came through the comms, crackling with alarm. Aliana's heart skipped a beat. Something was wrong. The ship had jumped off course, deviating far more than anticipated. The navigational systems were scrambling. They couldn't stabilize. We're off trajectory," one of the crew members called out from the navigation station, panic rising in her voice. "We've encountered a gravitational anomaly." Aliana shot to her feet. "What kind of anomaly?" she demanded, trying to steady herself against the sudden chaos of the ship. "Unknown. It's pulling us in, too strong. I don't." The sound of the intercom sputtered out, and the ship's artificial gravity flickered before stabilizing once more. The warning lights blinked erratically. Aliana grabbed hold of the nearest console, her mind racing. "We're being pulled into something," Jonas said grimly from across the room. "A black hole? A wormhole?" Aliana's mind clicked into overdrive. A black hole was too far out of their path, they should have been well beyond its reach. But a wormhole, a shortcut between distant parts of the galaxy, could be their salvation, or their doom. The navigational systems weren't capable of detecting it, and the forces of a rogue wormhole could tear them apart if they didn't act fast. "Hold on," Aliana ordered. She ran to the helm, her boots echoing against the cold metal floor. "We need to calculate a course out of here, now. Captain, divert all available power to the engines." Jonas nodded, stepping up beside her, his eyes steely. "Aye, Commander. But we don't know if it's enough." The ship's engines roared in response as power was rerouted to the propulsion systems. Aliana clenched her fists, her heart pounding. They had no way of knowing what was on the other side of this anomaly. It could be another galaxy entirely, a hostile region of space, or worse, a place where no one had ever returned from. "We've lost full control," the navigator shouted. "It's too late, we're entering it." The Zenith shook violently, and the lights flickered. For a moment, the ship seemed to be in freefall, plummeting toward the unknown. Aliana could feel her stomach drop as the ship's hull groaned under the strain. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, the turbulence stopped. Silence. Aliana took a deep breath, forcing her mind to remain clear. "Report," she barked. We've passed through," the navigator reported weakly. "We're in uncharted space, Commander. I'm detecting a nearby star system, but it's nothing like we've seen before." "It's..." "Put it on screen." Aliana snapped. The holographic display activated in front of them, and the image of a distant star came into view. It was surrounded by planets, but the planets weren't like any they had encountered. Some were swirling with clouds of gas, others were icy wastelands, while a few appeared to be perfectly suited for habitation. A new home, perhaps. But which one? Aliana's breath caught in her throat. "This is it," she whispered. "The first step. We've made it." But even as she spoke those words, a creeping sense of unease began to settle in her chest. There was something strange about this place. Something that didn't sit right. The galaxy was not as empty as they thought. The star system stretched out before them, silent and foreboding. As the Zenith drifted closer to its center, the crew's excitement was tempered with caution. Every moment in the vast expanse of space held the potential for new discoveries, but it also harbored the threat of unseen dangers. Aliana stood at the command center, eyes fixed on the view of the unfamiliar stars, trying to read the message hidden in the cold, distant lights. "Report," she said, her voice calm, betraying none of the anxiety gnawing at her insides. "Initial scans indicate that the system is stable," Lieutenant Vieira reported from the navigation station. "We're detecting at least 5 planets in the habitable zone, with one particularly promising candidate." It has a similar atmospheric composition to Earth. Aliana's heart skipped a beat. We may have found our new home. Not so fast, Commander, Jonas Core interjected. We haven't landed yet, and there's something else I'm picking up on long-range scans. It's faint, but I'm getting signals. Not like any communication we've encountered before. It's encrypted, alien. Aliana's pulse quickened. What kind of signals? Are they hostile? Jonas shook his head, his expression grim. I can't tell. There's too much interference, but it's definitely not random. Someone, or something, out there is trying to communicate. Aliana's mind raced. They had come so far, so desperately trying to find a safe haven. But the reality of their situation was dawning on her. The stars may be empty, but the universe wasn't. And if they were to survive here, they would have to face whatever lay ahead. But that meant stepping into the unknown, into the domain of others who might not want them here. Do we have any idea where it's coming from? She asked, narrowing her gaze at the readout. Jonas studied the data. It's coming from the fourth planet in the system. It's not much to go on, but it's a start. If we're lucky, it's just a probe or a beacon. If we're not, well, we might have just walked into someone else's territory. The uncertainty hung in the air like a thick fog, but Aliana knew they had no other choice. The Zenith had no fuel reserves for another jump, and Earth's people could not afford to wait. If this was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity, they couldn't afford to sit idle in the cold vacuum of space. We're going down, Aliana said firmly. Prepare the crew for landing. Captain, I want all defensive systems online. We don't know what we're walking into, but I'll be damned if we're going in unprepared. Aye, Commander, Jonas responded. I'll also send a recon team to investigate the signal. We'll be ready for whatever's out there. As the crew scrambled to prepare for landing, Aliana took a moment to gather her thoughts. She stood before the command console, staring at the planet on the display, watching as they neared its surface. She had no idea what they would find when they landed, but she knew one thing: humanity would not go down without a fight. Not now. Not ever. The Zenith descended through the atmosphere of the fourth planet with a controlled precision. The planet's surface came into view, a vast, arid landscape dotted with strange rock formations and thick, swirling dust storms. The once promising promise of Earth-like atmosphere now seemed ominous, as if the planet itself were hiding something beneath its surface. This is it, Jonas said, his voice over the comms. We're touching down. The ship shook slightly as the landing gear touched the dusty soil. The engines powered down, and silence filled the ship once again. Aliana stood, her boots clicking sharply against the metal floor as she walked toward the airlock. Behind her, the crew prepared for the first step on an unknown world, unsure of whether they would find salvation or destruction. As the hatch opened, the harsh winds of the planet whipped in, carrying with them the scent of ozone and dry earth. Aliana stepped out, her boots sinking into the thick, gritty sand as she surveyed the alien landscape before her. The sky above was a swirling mixture of dark clouds and faint streaks of crimson, casting an eerie light over the barren terrain. The air was thin, but breathable, and Aliana adjusted her helmet's filters, scanning the area for any sign of life. I don't like this, Jonas muttered beside her. It feels wrong. Aliana didn't disagree. The planet had an unnatural stillness to it, as if it were holding its breath. And somewhere in the distance, she could still feel the hum of that mysterious signal, faint but insistent. Recon team, head out, she ordered. Stay alert. We're not sure what's waiting for us here. The team gathered, armed with weapons and scanning equipment, ready for whatever might be lurking. Aliana watched them go, her mind a swirl of apprehension and determination. Humanity had come this far, and they couldn't afford to fail now. As the recon team moved deeper into the dust storm, Aliana's attention turned to the darkening horizon. The distant mountains, half hidden in the swirling winds, seemed to pulse with a strange energy, like they were alive, watching. And behind those mountains, in the shadows, something stirred. Hours passed with no word from the recon team, and Aliana's concern grew. It was too quiet. The signal they had been tracking had intensified but was still nothing more than a strange, fragmented sequence of bursts, nothing that could be fully deciphered. Finally, a transmission crackled through the comms, and Aliana's heart leapt with hope. "Commander Scar, this is Recon Team 2. We've found something. You need to see this." "Where are you?" Aliana asked, her voice tight. "North. Beyond the ridge. It's a structure. We don't know what it is, but we think it's ancient. And there's something else, something alive. We need backup." The hairs on the back of Aliana's neck stood up. Something alive. That wasn't possible. Was it? "We're on our way," she ordered. "Everyone, suit up. And stay sharp. We're not alone." As the team mobilized, Aliana's gaze shifted back to the mountains. The sense of being watched grew stronger. The quiet of the planet was no longer peaceful. It was suffocating. And whatever was out there, hidden in the shadows, was beginning to make itself known. Humanity had survived the ashes of Earth, but their real battle was just beginning. And it was not the land they feared, but the unknown force watching from the dark. The team moved out in silence, the oppressive dust storm howling around them as they made their way toward the coordinates provided by the recon team. Aliana led the charge, her boots crunching in the sand, her eyes scanning the horizon with laser focus. Behind her, Captain Core and a few of the crew followed closely, their weapons ready, their senses heightened. "We're getting closer," Jonas muttered over the comms, his voice carrying the same unease that weighed on everyone's shoulders. "The signal's stronger now." Aliana nodded, but didn't reply. Her thoughts were consumed by the unknown. The structure, as reported by the recon team, was unlike anything they had ever seen before. A series of irregular shapes and angles, almost organic in nature, had been detected just beyond the ridge. It didn't make sense, this planet was supposed to be uninhabited. Yet, here they were, trekking through a barren landscape, towards something that shouldn't exist. The wind howled as they crossed the final stretch of open desert, and the massive formation of jagged rocks and twisting spires loomed ahead, partially obscured by the swirling dust. It was then that Aliana saw it. At first, she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her. But no, there it was again. A flicker of movement, a shadow, darting behind the rocks. She held up her hand, signaling the team to halt. A deep silence fell over them, broken only by the distant howling of the storm. "Did you see that?" Jonas whispered, his voice tight. "I did," Aliana replied, her hand moving toward the sidearm at her waist. She gestured for the team to spread out, positioning themselves behind boulders and debris for cover. The signal was now a constant pulse in her earpiece, unmistakable, rhythmic, as if it were calling them closer. Yet, there was no sign of life, only the eerie quiet of a place abandoned by time. The structure loomed ahead, a labyrinth of geometric shapes that looked like some kind of ancient ruins, possibly even alien in origin. There were no markings, no indications of what it might be, other than a general sense of foreboding. They moved closer, the temperature dropping with each step as the wind shifted, pushing the storm away just enough to reveal the full scale of the structure. It was massive, easily the size of a small city, its towering spires stretching into the gray sky, casting long shadows over the landscape. Yet, there was something profoundly unsettling about it. The air was thick with a faint hum, as if the entire structure was alive, breathing. Aliana's comms crackled again. "Commander, this is Recon Team 2. We're at the base of the structure. We've found an entry point, but..." The transmission abruptly cut off. "Damn it," Aliana hissed. She motioned for the team to move forward quickly, breaking into a run. The wind picked up, swirling dust around them like a living thing. It felt like they were being drawn in, a magnet pulling them toward the heart of the structure. As they reached the entrance, Aliana noticed something strange. There were no visible doors, no locks or hinges. Instead, the stone, if it could even be called that, seemed to shift as if it had a mind of its own, sliding open with a groan that echoed deep into the structure. The smell that hit them was odd, like old, stale air, like something that had been buried for millennia. "Stay sharp," Aliana ordered, as the door opened wider. "We don't know what's inside." The moment they crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped further, the air thick with a low, pulsing hum that seemed to resonate in their bones. The walls inside the structure were smooth and featureless, bathed in a dim, unnatural light that seemed to come from nowhere. The ground beneath their feet was uneven, but there was a steady, vibrating energy coming from deep within the structure. Jonas stepped forward cautiously, his hand gripping the pulse rifle tightly. "What the hell is this place?" he muttered under his breath. Before Aliana could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the corridor ahead. Aliana froze. They weren't alone. Someone, or something, was moving toward them. Aliana signaled the team to spread out, taking position at the nearest cover. Her heart hammered in her chest as the footsteps grew louder, more deliberate. Then, suddenly, the corridor was illuminated by an eerie green glow, casting strange, angular shadows on the walls. It was as though the place itself was alive, and it was watching them. And then, out of the shadows, stepped a figure. It was humanoid in shape, but with an alien elegance. Tall, its skin was a pale, translucent blue, almost iridescent, with veins of glowing light running through it. The creature's eyes were large, dark, and unblinking, set deep into its skull. Aliana's breath caught in her throat as she took in its form, unable to look away. It wasn't human. It wasn't anything she had ever seen before. The alien did not speak, but it moved toward them with an almost fluid grace. There was no hostility in its posture, but Aliana couldn't shake the feeling that this being, this alien, was far more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. "Lower your weapons," she ordered, her voice steady despite the turmoil within her. "Let's see what it wants." The creature halted before them, and for a long, tense moment, it studied them with those unblinking eyes. Aliana's mind raced. What was this creature? Was it the source of the signal? Was it a survivor of this planet's long-forgotten history? Or was it something else entirely, something even older and far more dangerous? The being tilted its head slightly, as if contemplating the humans before it. Then, to Aliana's surprise, it spoke, not in words, but in a clear, resonating thought that reverberated directly in her mind. "We have been waiting for you." The voice was not mechanical, not a mere echo. It was alive, ancient, and filled with a deep sorrow. Aliana took a step back, her mind scrambling to process the enormity of the situation. "Waiting for us," she repeated aloud, her voice laced with disbelief. "Yes. You are the last. The ones who will carry it. The ones who will continue. You have arrived." Before Aliana could respond, the walls of the structure seemed to tremble, the hum growing louder, more insistent. The air around them shimmered with an unnatural energy. The creature reached out a hand, extending its long, slender fingers toward Aliana's chest. "You are the key. Do not fear. You must understand what has come before. The path will be revealed." The light around them grew brighter, the energy pulsating in waves that made Aliana's head spin. And then, without warning, she was engulfed in a sudden, searing flash of light. The path had been set in motion. Aliana's world would never be the same again. Humanity had found more than a new world, they had found an ancient force, one whose power and influence stretched back farther than the stars themselves. And in that moment, Aliana understood, their journey was far from over. It was only just beginning. The world around Aliana spun, the ground beneath her feet seemingly vanishing as a blinding light engulfed her. The strange alien figure's outstretched hand had made contact, and everything, time, space, perception, shifted. She gasped, clutching her head as an overwhelming flood of sensations and images bombarded her mind. She was drowning in a torrent of knowledge, of alien memories that were not her own. Alien voices whispered in her mind, echoing across time and space. She saw stars dying, civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye, and, most haunting of all, a vision of Earth, burned and destroyed, just as they had witnessed from orbit. It was as though the alien's memories were merging with hers, showing her the past and future of not only this planet but of everything in the galaxy. For what felt like an eternity, she was lost in the vision. The sheer weight of it, the knowledge, the history, the horrors, nearly shattered her sanity. But in the midst of the chaos, a single thread of clarity emerged. Aliena was the key. She didn't know how, or why, but it was undeniable. The alien presence had selected her, chosen her to carry something. Something of immense power, something that could either save or doom them all. A final, sharp pulse of light snapped her back to reality. She staggered, gasping for air, her hands clutching the walls for support. Her heart hammered in her chest, and for a moment, she thought she might collapse. The knowledge was still there, lingering in the back of her mind, but now it was tempered with an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Aliena blinked, the world around her slowly coming back into focus. The creature was still standing before her, its glowing eyes fixed on her with a strange, unblinking intensity. But it was no longer just an alien being, it was something more, something vast and ancient, and Aliena could feel the weight of that age pressing down on her. Her voice was shaky, but she forced herself to speak. What do you want from us? Why me? The alien did not respond in words. Instead, a strange energy pulsed from its form, and a holographic image flickered to life in the air between them. It was a map of the galaxy, but not the galaxy as they knew it. It was ancient, the stars and planets marked with symbols Aliena did not recognize, their meaning hidden in the cryptic lines of alien script. Then, a voice echoed in her mind once again, not from the alien, but from the map itself, as though the very fabric of the stars was speaking. You are the last of the firstborn. You have come to carry the light of creation. Aliena's breath caught in her throat. The firstborn. The light of creation. The words felt like a revelation, but their meaning remained just out of reach. What was this light? And why had it chosen her? I don't understand, she whispered, her voice hoarse. What is this light? And why now? Why me? The alien's eyes gleamed with ancient sorrow, and for the briefest moment, Aliena felt an overwhelming sense of loss. This creature had seen civilizations rise and fall, had watched as worlds were destroyed by the same forces that now threatened to consume her people. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of unspoken truths. Finally, the alien spoke aloud, its voice soft, almost sorrowful. The light of creation is the key to the survival of your kind. It has been passed from one to the next, from one world to another, and now it rests with you. But what is it? Aliena asked, desperation creeping into her voice. What do I have to do with it? The alien tilted its head, the faintest trace of empathy in its expression. It is not only a force, but a vessel. A repository of the knowledge of the stars, of the creation and destruction of worlds. It holds the power to shape the future of the galaxy. It has always been passed down, but never to one as human as you. Aliena took a step back, confusion mounting. You mean? I'm supposed to, what? Carry this power? How? The creature's form shifted slightly, and a strange, ethereal object materialized before her, floating in midair. It was a crystal, shimmering with an unnatural light, its surface smooth and polished as though it had been sculpted by an intelligence beyond comprehension. This, the alien said, is the vessel of the light. It must be taken to the place where the stars meet. It is there that the true purpose of the light will be revealed. Aliena felt a cold chill run down her spine as she reached out to touch the crystal. The moment her fingers brushed its surface, the flood of alien memories surged once again, and she gasped in shock. She saw the birth of civilizations, the rise of empires, and their inevitable downfall, each cycle playing out in an endless loop. She saw the future, a future where humanity would either rise to greatness or fall to ruin, all depending on her choices. You must choose, Aliena Scar, the alien's voice reverberated in her mind. Will you carry the light, or will you let it fade into darkness? The vision abruptly ended, and Aliena stumbled back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The weight of what she had seen, of the responsibility she now bore, was almost too much to bear. Her people had already lost so much. Earth was gone. Could they really survive this new trial? Was she even capable of leading them to salvation? The light must be taken, the alien said, its voice soft but insistent. You are the chosen bearer, Aliana Scar. It is your path to walk. Aliana stood there, trembling, the crystal now burning with an inner fire in her palm. She didn't know if she was ready for what lay ahead, or even if she could fully comprehend what it meant to carry such a burden. But one thing was clear, there was no turning back. The fate of humanity rested in her hands. As she turned to look back at the team behind her, their faces filled with fear and uncertainty, Aliana knew that her journey had only just begun. The galaxy was vast, and dangers beyond imagination awaited them. But she had a choice to make, one that would determine whether humanity would endure, or be lost to the cosmos forever. Prepare yourselves, Aliana said, her voice steady. We have a long road ahead of us. And with that, they began their journey into the heart of the unknown, the burden of the light weighing heavily on their shoulders. Humanity's path forward had been set, but the real challenge was only just beginning. The galaxy held secrets beyond their understanding, and whether they would survive the journey depended not on their technology, but on the choices they made, and the power they dared to wield. The days aboard the Zenith were growing increasingly tense. Aliana had never felt the weight of leadership so acutely, but with the light of creation pulsing in her grasp, the burden of responsibility was far greater than any war or mission they had ever faced. She had seen the visions, the rise and fall of empires, the intertwining of fate and choice. The fate of humanity, of Earth's survivors, now rested in her hands, and yet, the true nature of the light remained elusive. What was this power? What was she meant to do with it? The crew knew that the stakes had never been higher, but few understood the magnitude of what lay ahead. They continued on their course toward the heart of the galaxy, where the alien had spoken of the place where the stars meet. Aliana had no idea what that meant or where they were heading, but the map that had been transmitted to her mind, the map that no one else could see, was becoming clearer with each passing day. We're approaching the coordinates, Jonas said, breaking Aliana from her thoughts. His voice, though professional, carried an undercurrent of concern. They had all seen what she had seen, the destruction, the weight of their mission, and it was clear that no one fully understood what the light would require of them. Aliana stood from her seat at the command center, walking to the observation window. The stars were flickering in the distance, and the swirling nebulae of the galaxy loomed ahead. She could feel the pull of something out there, something waiting for them. Helm, prepare for entry into the nebula, she ordered. Keep an eye on the sensors. We don't know what we'll encounter once we're inside. The Zenith began its descent toward the dense nebula. The ship's engines hummed as they pushed through the cosmic fog, the stars becoming indistinct in the murky blackness. There was an unsettling quiet as the crew worked silently, the tension thickening with each passing second. They had crossed countless star systems, endured deadly storms, and fought off threats both seen and unseen, but this felt different. The closer they got to their destination, the more the air seemed to crackle with anticipation. Suddenly, the ship's systems flickered. The lights dimmed, and an alarm blared, pulling Aliana's focus back to the bridge. What the hell was that? Jonas demanded, his hand flying to the control panel. Shields are fluctuating. Lieutenant Vieira called out from the communications station, her voice sharp. There's something interfering with the system, an energy field we didn't detect before. Can you compensate? Aliana demanded, her pulse quickening. We're trying, Commander, Vieira replied. But the interference is too strong. We need to stabilize before we can proceed. Aliana's thoughts raced. This was no natural phenomenon. Someone, or something, was drawing them in, holding them at the edge of an invisible precipice. Whatever awaited them in the heart of the nebula was not going to let them pass without a challenge. Suddenly, the ship jolted, throwing everyone off balance. The Zenith shook violently, as if caught in the grip of an unseen force. The starboard side crackled with electrical discharges, sending sparks and fire arcing across the control panel. Brace for impact," Aliana shouted, grabbing onto a nearby railing. The crew scrambled to secure themselves as the ship lurched again, this time more violently. Then, as quickly as it had begun, the shaking stopped. Aliana's head was spinning, but she regained her bearings quickly. "Status report, now. We've lost primary engines," Vieira shouted over the noise. "We're drifting. The energy field is locking us in." Jonas swore under his breath, tapping furiously at his console. "The interference is coming from all directions. We're trapped in some kind of gravitational field. We won't be able to break free without external help." Aliana clenched her fists. The situation was deteriorating rapidly, but she wasn't about to give up now. "Get us out of here," she ordered, her voice firm. "Even if we have to fight our way through. We don't know what's waiting for us outside, Commander," Jonas warned, his face pale. "We could be walking straight into a trap." "I don't care," Aliana snapped, her resolve unwavering. "We have no choice." As the crew worked to regain control, the ship's sensors picked up something on the horizon, a massive structure emerging from the nebula's depths. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before, an immense ring-shaped object that seemed to pulse with an energy all its own. It was as if it were alive, an ancient relic of a long-dead civilization. The ship continued to drift toward it, the gravitational pull drawing them in. Aliana stared at the structure, her heart pounding. This was it. This was the place the alien had spoken of, the place where the stars meet. But what did that mean? "We're being pulled in," Lieutenant Vieira cried out, trying to override the ship's controls. "It's too strong. We can't escape it." Aliana's stomach clenched. There was no turning back now. "Prepare for landing," she said, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. "We have to go in, even if we can't control the ship." As they approached the massive structure, it became clear that it was not a natural formation. The surface was smooth, gleaming with an otherworldly shine, and it stretched out endlessly in all directions, its sheer size dwarfing the Zenith. The ship shuddered as it made contact with the surface of the object, its landing gear scraping against the polished metal. For a moment, there was silence, utter and complete. And then, the air itself seemed to vibrate with a low hum, as though the structure had come alive. "We're here," Aliana said, her voice a whisper, barely audible over the humming. "Whatever happens next, we're in it together." The airlock hissed open, and Aliana stepped out first, followed by Jonas and the rest of the team. They stood on the edge of the massive platform, looking out over the gleaming expanse of the alien structure. The hum grew louder, filling the air with an almost unbearable resonance. Aliana's breath caught in her throat. Ahead of them, the structure seemed to open, revealing a dark, pulsing core at its center. The light of creation in her hand grew warmer, its glow intensifying in response to the core's energy. "This is it," Aliana said, her voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling within her. "The moment of truth." They approached the center, the ground beneath them shifting and responding to their presence. The walls seemed to melt away, revealing a vast chamber beyond, where an alien figure stood waiting for them. It was not the same creature as before, but something far more ancient, its form a mixture of light and shadow, its eyes burning with the intensity of 1,000 dying stars. It spoke, but not in words. "You have come to the trial of the stars. Your actions here will determine the fate of your species. Choose wisely, for the light can both create and destroy. It is within you to shape the future." Aliana held her breath. The challenge had arrived. Would humanity endure, or would they become yet another forgotten relic of the stars? The trial of the stars had begun. The fate of humanity was in their hands. The galaxy awaited their decision, and only the choices they made in this chamber would determine whether they would rise as the inheritors of the stars, or fall into oblivion. The chamber was vast, stretching endlessly in every direction. Aliana stood at the center of the eerie, pulsing room, the light of creation growing brighter in her hand. The alien figure before them, an ancient being of light and shadow, stared at her with eyes that seemed to pierce into her very soul. It was silent, waiting, as though the weight of the universe hung on the next few moments. Aliena could feel the gaze of her crew on her, their collective breath held in anticipation. They had made it this far, braving the unknown, fighting through the cosmic storms and dangers that had sought to tear them apart. Now, they stood at the edge of destiny. The light in her hand thrummed, its energy coursing through her veins. She could feel its power, an ancient and unyielding force, calling to her, offering everything and nothing at once. It was a gift, yes, but also a curse. It held the power to shape reality itself, to bend the fabric of space and time, to remake the galaxy in the image of its bearer. But it also carried the potential to destroy everything they had fought to protect. The alien had warned her, the light could create or destroy. There was no middle ground. The figure before her raised a hand, and a strange, ethereal doorway appeared in the air, shimmering with an otherworldly light. It beckoned to them. Aliena could feel its pull, the allure of what lay beyond, but she knew that crossing that threshold meant making a choice. "You have come far," the figure's voice echoed in her mind, deep and resonant. "The light has chosen you, Aliena Scar, because you are the last of the firstborn, the one who will decide the fate of your people. But there is no turning back once the choice is made." Aliena's heart raced, and for the first time, she allowed herself to look back at her crew. Jonas stood closest to her, his expression a mixture of determination and fear. His eyes met hers, and she saw the unspoken question in them, "What now? What do we do?" "Commander," Jonas's voice broke through the silence. "We've made it this far. We've lost so much already. But we can't keep living in the past. Whatever this light is, we need to decide what comes next, together." Aliena nodded, taking a deep breath. She turned back to the figure. "What happens if we fail this trial? If we make the wrong choice?" The alien figure's eyes glowed brighter for a moment, and then it spoke, its voice more solemn than before. "Failure would mean the end of your species. The light would fall into the void, and with it, all that you have fought for. The galaxy will continue to spin in its chaotic dance, and your people will become another forgotten race, lost to time." The weight of its words hit her like a physical blow. She had known the stakes. They had all known. But hearing it spoken aloud, in such cold terms, made it undeniable. "And if we succeed?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "If you succeed," the figure said, "the light will reshape the galaxy, giving humanity a place among the stars. It will guide you to ascendancy, to a future where you are no longer slaves to fate, but masters of it. But be warned, the light is not a tool to be wielded lightly. It will demand sacrifice, and those who seek its power must be prepared to bear its burden." Aliena felt a shiver run down her spine. A future among the stars, a future where humanity could become something more, something greater. It was a dream she had never dared to fully entertain, a vision that felt too distant, too impossible. And yet, the light in her hand pulsed with an undeniable truth. It was real. They could shape that future. But at what cost? The trial was not about finding the right answer, it was about understanding the consequences of their choices. And Aliena knew, deep down, that there was no perfect choice. There was no perfect future. Every path they could take would carry its own burdens. "Commander," Jonas said softly, stepping closer to her. "I know you feel the weight of this. But we trust you. Whatever you choose, we'll follow. You've led us this far. The crew believes in you." Aliena swallowed, her thoughts swirling. She looked back at the alien figure, whose expression was inscrutable, as though it had seen this moment play out countless times before. The trial was as much about her people as it was about her. Humanity had been born from the ashes of Earth, scattered to the stars, and now they were here, on the precipice of something greater. But that greatness would come with a price. A price she had to choose. She began, her voice cracking slightly. "I don't know if we're ready for this. We're still so broken. But I can't turn away from the future we could have. I can't turn away from the hope that we can be more than we were." Aliena raised the crystal, her hand steady now, as if the decision had already been made in her heart. The light of creation flared brightly, its energy filling the chamber with a brilliant glow. The ground beneath them hummed in response, the air thick with the weight of 1,000 possibilities. "I choose to lead them," she said, her voice resolute. "I choose humanity." The alien figure nodded, its expression softening, as though acknowledging the gravity of her decision. "Then, you shall carry the light. But know this, your journey is far from over. The choices you make now will echo through the future, shaping the destiny of your species. The path ahead is uncertain, but you are the beacon that will guide them." With a final, reverberating hum, the figure disappeared, leaving only the pulsating energy of the light and the chamber's eerie stillness behind. Aliana lowered the crystal, its glow dimming slightly as the weight of her choice settled over her. The crew stood around her, silently watching, waiting for the next step. The doorway ahead opened, revealing a new path, a path that would lead them into the unknown. But they were no longer afraid. They had chosen this future. And together, they would face whatever came next. "Let's go," Aliana said, her voice steady once again. "The stars are waiting for us." As they stepped forward, the Zenith stood ready for its next journey. The light of creation had chosen its bearer, and humanity's place among the stars had been secured. But the future was still unwritten, and Aliana knew that their greatest trial was yet to come. They were ready. Humanity had endured, from the ashes of Earth to the zenith of the cosmos. And now, they would rise.